It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. As we begin a Thursday, another crazy Wednesday behind us now. Gary, how are you?
I don't have enough time.
No?
I just don't have enough time.
Yeah.
Every day I wake up at 10 o'clock. I'm just like, wait a minute. There's not enough time. I got to change my sleep pattern or something. Because it's just, the news is just, it doesn't matter whenever you take a nap. When you wake up, it's like, geez.
Well, I was up until 8 o'clock. I was up till 8 p.m. And, I thought, okay, well, certainly I can close my eyes for an hour and a half. 90 minutes. It's all I need. You would think it would be safe to do that. No. It's not. Yeah, it's pretty insane out there right now. It does make you wonder. I'm now very curious about the midterm and how it's going to come together. I do believe this could be shaping up to be one of the liveliest midterms we've seen in a long, long time. I don't know what the Democrats are going to do. I don't know what they're going to promote. Because the radicals, again, we the other night we did the article from Politico talking about the 9 Democrats in the House, that 8 of which wouldn't even give their names, and they said their constituents at home are livid and out for blood. They want blood.
Right.
They feel, well, it was, all you had to do is read the article. They feel intimidated by their own constituents.
Axios.
Was it Axios or Politico?
I believe it was Axios.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, well, then you can tell me why it matters.
Or what's the difference?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because when I was reading part of that article, I always get from you why it matters.
This is why it matters.
If anybody doesn't know, Axios, whenever they do a story, has to tell you why the story matters.
Right, yeah. It's right there at the top. They'll do a brief introduction to the story and then why it matters. And it's, again, what do you do in your campaign to appeal? You can't win without that radical base, which is pretty much the base. There are no moderate Democrats out there. There are people that call themselves moderate Democrats. But if you're voting for this insanity, you're not a moderate at all.
I think the fascinating thing of that and the scary thing from that article is that, they interviewed a dozen Democrats, but they actually quoted 9 of the Democrats. 8 would not give their name. These right. Democrat members of Congress are afraid of their own constituents. They're scared to death of Democrats that come to their town hall meetings or whom, when they're out, they communicate one-on-one. Yeah. And you had one, and it was like, no, they wanted anonymity. Why? You're a member of Congress. You can't give your opinion?
Right, yeah.
They're afraid if they come out and tell you that the people that we talk to, the Democratic voter, wants blood, that they can't say that and put their name behind it because they're scared of the Democrat voter.
Yep.
That's mind-boggling. I've covered politics now for almost, I've been a talk radio host for 36 years, but I, was in management, over news departments, things like that. So it's almost a half century covering the news. I've never seen a story like that, ever. And the thing is, it's Axios, which is a liberal outlet, talking to liberal members of Congress, Democrat liberal members of Congress who are scared of their own voters. And it brings up a point. You and I, we go back a few years when people would call the show and say, Congress is not doing the will of the people. Mm-hmm. And we said, well, actually, they are.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
But in this case, the Democrats aren't doing the will of their voters, where they're scared to death. And so they have to. And you made a great point. You said, how did this article start?
Yeah.
I thought that was a great point that you made, because it's a liberal outlet, Axios, and they do a story about Democrat members of Congress, and all the ones that they quote, only one was willing to give his name. It was a congressman out of Illinois. I don't have the story in front of me here at the moment. And the rest only would do it on the condition of anonymity.
Right.
Well, why? You're scared of your own Democrat voter, because that was the point they made. That the people that I talked to, the Democrat voter, wants blood. And that was, when you think about it, and that was that the same day? Yeah, no, it was earlier this week. So, I mean, the shooting in Alvarado, the attempted mass murder, and you see they're looking now for
the 12th suspect.
The 12th suspect.
Yeah.
And I did you get, when you read that article, well, a number of articles on it, but when you read it, and I don't know where you read it, we didn't have this discussion. Well, it's the only thing we didn't cover in the pre-show meeting.
Yeah.
We covered everything else.
Yeah.
And you and I looked and said, okay, who was the ringleader? Who created all this? There's always, in something like this where you have 10 people involved in it, normally there's a leader. There's somebody who's organizing it. There's somebody who's pushing it. And we asked a couple of questions. First off, there was one conspiracy charge.
Right,
and we asked that person that got the conspiracy charge, but not the murder charge, the attempted murder charge. And we asked the question, was that the ringleader? But if you're involved in the conspiracy in any way, aren't you part in the law? For example, if you're the driver and you rob a bank and you're the driver and somebody gets killed, you can get charged with murder or attempted murder, whatever, because it was attempted murder in this case of a federal officer.
Right.
But that's a question that we would have I was like, are they implying that this is the person, the 12th one that they're looking for, that this is the person who was the leader of the group? But the scary part of it was, and yeah, I don't think we played it on the air. I'll see if I can find it. I know both of us listened to it yesterday. It was Chris Cuomo talking about the fact and going, my God, this is like Antifa.
Yeah.
How far has the Democratic Party gone? Remember, he's a liberal Democrat.
Right.
And he's like, what the hell's going on?
Right.
People should be covering this story. This is one of the biggest stories out there, as you and I said. If it was reversed and it was a Democrat in office as president, and this happened against a Democrat administration, this thing would be nonstop. It would be the only thing that they would be talking about.
The only story.
And I think Chris Cuomo saw it and realized the same thing and went, my God, what the hell's going on? This is like we talk about sleeper cells.
He compared it to terrorism.
Yeah.
That's Chris Cuomo.
Yeah. And so you look at it, and so that story was out there, and then the story comes out from Axios that these members of Congress are afraid of their own voters.
Right.
The people that put them into office, they're scared to death of them because they want blood.
Yeah.
What they say is, we lost, we can't win, get blood.
Right.
And then these same people are telling them, why aren't you willing basically to assault government law enforcement where you'll get arrested. Mm-hmm. We want you to get arrested. And the other interesting thing is they all want this. I think, did we mention the part that they all want impeachment?
Right.
Even though it doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
They're like, why aren't you impeaching? Why aren't you impeaching?
Right. Yeah.
There's this type of, we want blood, but we want the symbolism that will fail again. And it's almost as if you have these emotional, not stable people out there just ranting and raving about what government policy should be.
It was Brad Schneider was the representative from Illinois who gave his name. He was the only one out of the 9 that gave his name to Axios. And he's the chair of the center left. This is what actually made me laugh about this whole thing. He's the chair of the center left New Democrat Coalition. Also, likely its only member. I don't know that to be true. I'm just wondering how many center left. Okay, first of all, let's back up. Define center left. Define New Democrat. Are they saying New Democrat or New Democrat Coalition? New as in coalition or new as in Democrat? I don't know any New Democrats. They're the same insane Democrats that we have had for now far too long. And it's getting more insaner by the minute.
I think you ask a great question when you say what in the hell's going to happen in the midterms, and I believe it was Roy Teixeira that wrote a column on that the other day. He runs a Liberal Patriot a long time ago. This goes back a couple of years.
Yeah.
He was part, along with Douglas Schoen, another Democrat pollster out there, that said the Democratic Party has to be more MAGA. And this goes back about a year and a half ago, that they've got to be more MAGA. They can't be which means the things that Trump talks about that are mainstream. They recognized early on the 80-20 problem that the Democrats have. And so he was, he was writing the same thing, but I don't know. I think you bring up a great question. Where do they go? What's going to happen? And you can add the whole Mandami thing. Oh, I'm sorry. Commie, Mayor Mandami.
Yeah.
You can throw that in there too, where they don't know where to go on it. I think it was a National Review article I read yesterday saying, maybe it was Wall Street Journal, I don't know, but it was like, where's Chuck Schumer? Is he going to endorse him? Is Chuck Schumer going to endorse this absolute anti-Semite?
No, that's an even better
candidate?
question. It's those individuals who, because there will be more radicals. Mamdani's not going to be the only one out there. I mean, but in the midterm, especially in the House races, who's going to go on the road and endorse each other? How does this whole thing at the midterm shape together? And what does it look like if Mamdani wins? What if he becomes mayor?
And then when you see how Trump presents himself, it's almost as if, and we haven't even had this talk, so you can tell me whether you agree with me on this, it's almost as if the rally mentality of any type of what would be perceived as an outrageous statement from Trump is gone. When you see him speaking, even when he had, his entire cabinet yesterday, he's much more soft-spoken. Well, I don't understand why they're doing this. I don't understand. This doesn't make any sense. Oh, my gosh, they're nuts. Now, not that he won't go off and say they're nuts or, he used the BS word the other day, but where he used it, I said, it's effective.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And people look at it and go, but he's not out there in rally mode, raising his voice, projecting his voice at a louder volume, shouting, whatever. He's and you look at the contrast here, and it's just, it's really fascinating. There is a change in the marketing on both sides.
Yeah.
The message on both sides.
I think there's a change in him. I think there's been a change in him after what he's been through. I think there is a change in him, and also now understanding, I mean, you still have some issues at the Pentagon. We talked about those, talked about them yesterday. You need to know what's going on with Ukraine. You need to know what's going on at the Pentagon. And by the way, I told you off the air, I don't think I ever said it on the air, but that also falls on Pete Hegseth too.
Yes, it does.
That's his house. He's going to have to get all of those matters straight. You cannot have anybody acting in basically their own authority outside, especially in on an item like this. But no one at the Pentagon gets to do that. It goes to the top at the Pentagon, which is Pete Hegseth, and from there goes to the commander-in-chief, full stop. It is the decision of the president of the United States and nobody else's when it comes to any matter regarding to what we're going to do for Ukraine. And that's insane that it fell out. And the messaging, by the way, was also which is on President Trump. He's, we've said to a fault, he'll talk to the media. And he was being very honest. He was saying, I don't know how it happens. And I believe him. I believe that to be the truth. But you can't say that out loud in that moment because you need to know you need to know what happened before anybody asks you the question. That should never happen. And again, I put a great deal of that on Pete Hegseth. You need to, I don't know what's going on at the Pentagon, but that clearly wasn't the will of the president, and he's the one I voted for.
I read some article yesterday where it said it's almost as if they're in a gig economy at the Pentagon. It's just, we just do what we want.
Right.
It's like,
that's too reminiscent of the Biden administration.
Well, here's the thing too. But when I don't care whether Trump said, look, everything has to be passed by me. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't and again, I have no government service whatsoever.
Right.
But if I'm in the government and I'm working and I'm especially in the Defense Department where I'm dealing with the commander in chief and any major policy decision on anything that we're involved with, like Ukraine, Israel, whatever, I don't make any decision. Even if I make the decision, I'm like, this is what I believe we're going to do. I'm calling the president to make sure he knows about it. Yep. Here's what we're going to do here.
All the way up the flagpole.
You don't sit there and say, we believe there's going to be a temporary pause in sending weapons to Ukraine, and the president doesn't know it.
Yeah. No one makes that call.
As you and I said yesterday, somebody should get fired over that one.
Yep.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Hey there. This is Hope Zavara with Mother Trucker Yoga, and here's your health tip of the day. Healthy driver, healthy diesel. Powered by House. Lower back pain is one of the most common complaints amongst truck drivers, with over 50% experiencing it regularly. Let's fix that. Sit up tall in your seat, inhale and arc your lower back away from the seat, like there's a pin behind you you're trying to avoid. Now exhale, round your back, and tuck your tailbone under, just like the shape of the letter C. Repeat that movement 5, 10, even 15 times until your lower back and hips start to loosen up and feel ready for the road. There you go. Small, simple changes can lead to big results so that you, my friend, can feel good again. Visit mothertruckeryoga.com and houseproducts.com for more tips and support.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up on the bottom of the hour. Not that we're going to spend a lot of time on it, but we have an audio cut from The View to show you how clueless they are. They don't even know the basics of what the hell they're talking about. And one thing I've always said is The View gives the incorrect stereotype that women are emotional idiots.
Yeah.
That's what The View does. The View gives the wrong impression because these aren't women that I know.
No.
They're not women that I deal with, but they give the impression that women are emotional idiot nightmares who have no clue as to what they're talking about.
They do it every day.
And we'll give you the next piece of evidence in a few minutes.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. By the time we get to Thursday, there's just so many audio cuts to play
gosh.
And comment on. Look, we all know the debate from the big, beautiful bill. Well, most of us know the debate.
Well, yeah, you do have to qualify that.
On the whole Medicaid situation with the big, beautiful bill. Mm-hmm. And it's what we have said, which is very simple, that if you're a able-bodied person, you should be working if you wish to get any benefits. Yeah. That is not a radical position to hold at all.
Right.
I just realized a couple weeks ago I got, you guys are just so radical, and I wrote back, tell me one radical position that we hold. Tell me one thing that's and they just didn't respond. Yeah, it was like, you guys are so incredibly radical, and we've always said, tell us one radical position that we hold. One.
Right.
You guys are just radical. Okay, you use the word radical. Tell us the specific issue that we are radical on.
Yeah.
That is a radical position. Mamdami, commie, traitor to our country. Commie, Mayor Mamdami. He's a radical. Promoting communism in 2025 as a successful solution for the problems of New York City. That's a radical position.
Yep.
But we really don't have radical positions. When you break it down to the things that we believe, the only time that we're viewed as radical is when people use rhetoric or slogans. Yeah. But it's like, okay, fine. Where? Tell me one thing that we're radical on. And they can't do it. And so it's not radical when you say to the American public, look, if you want benefits and you're an able-bodied person, my God, you should be working. Otherwise, those benefits should go away.
Right.
And as we all know, Democrats are doing everything possible to lie about what was in that bill.
Yes.
Number one, there are no cuts. It's a reduction in the rate of spending.
Right.
And so Republicans are, their point of view on this. In fact, let me play before we get to the audio cut from The View, just to show you a contrast. Here's Scott Jennings talking about the difference. Here we go.
And the Republican ethos is encouraging work. The Democratic ethos is encouraging government dependence. There's nothing politically devastating about trying to bar 1.4 million illegal aliens from getting welfare. There's nothing politically devastating about encouraging 4.8 million people who choose not to work to try to work a little in order to get government benefits. And they did in the Senate install a $50 billion fund for rural hospitals, which was something he also raised concerns about. So I don't agree with his political analysis, nor does virtually every other Republican who helped to craft and ultimately pass this bill.
There you go. Is that radical? Is anything there radical? No. All right, let's go to The View. All right, here we go. All right, you ready for this?
All right,
here we go.
What's interesting to me is that this is the kind of thing, what's bothering his MAGA crowd is not the tariffs, which are going to raise prices on their food and all. It's not the possibility that you're going to lose Medicaid, so you're going to all have to take care of your mothers and fathers who have dementia or whatever's bothering them.
What's the problem with that statement right there? She doesn't know the difference between Medicaid and Medicare. She doesn't know.
I don't know. Did you get a legal note on that one? I guess not, because nobody's going to threaten to sue, right?
But it shows you how clueless they are. And I've always said about The View, and I'll say it again, it gives the incorrect stereotype that women are emotional nightmare idiots who don't know anything. They don't know the facts. They don't know the truth. All they know is emotional rhetoric, first response emotional nightmare rhetoric, which is, again, not the women that I know.
Yeah. Right.
The women that I know don't think that way, but they give that incorrect stereotype on a consistent basis that women are emotional nightmares.
Well,
who don't,
and that they're clueless.
Who are completely clueless on the issues out there. She doesn't apparently know the difference between Medicaid and Medicare.
Well, it's, someone asked me the other day, do we really have millions of people on the Medicaid rolls that shouldn't be there? I said, yeah, if they're able-bodied, they shouldn't be there. And then the response back was, do we have millions that are able-bodied? Yep. That's the latest account. And if it's accurate and true, then they should be taken off the Medicaid rolls.
I think the 4.8 million came from polling of those people, I believe, that have stated, no, we're not going to work.
Right. Yeah. And
that's where they got that number from.
Right.
That 4.8 million have said no.
Well,
we're going to refuse. We're able-bodied, but we're going to refuse to work.
Right.
Or volunteer.
Right.
Look, I look at this and say, the whole thing of volunteering for 20 hours, stop it. Work.
Yeah. Go earn yours. If you're able, if you are mentally and physically able to do that, then you should go do it.
Right. Put on your mask first.
Exactly. That's what they tell you on the airplane. Why do they tell you that on an airplane? Because you have to be strong in order to help others. So start by helping yourself.
They'll volunteer for the Democratic PAC that's focused on ensuring that they don't have to work and can continue to collect
Well, no, I mean, this is
Medicaid.
because they have made the promise. Remember, Nancy, you should be able to quit your job and pursue what you want to do in life.
Yeah. That goes back to 2009,
right?
2010.
Yep.
Nancy Pelosi on Obamacare, that you shouldn't be forced to work. You should be able to quit your job and just have health care that's there so you can pursue whatever you want to in life. It's not a radical position to say you need to be self-sufficient. That's not a radical concept, but it is to Democrats. Understand how out of touch Democrats are. Yeah. No, you shouldn't have to work and the government should take care of you.
Right.
The government, when you're an adult, and the government should be the kind of parent who lets you live in the house, not pay rent, not work, sit in the basement, play video games.
Yeah.
And they should be, and others should be forced to subsidize your irresponsible actions as an adult.
Yep. And that should be your goal.
I think about my over 3.5 decades of being a radio talk show host. And one thing in your mind is when you bring up something, you say, okay, what would be the liberal response to that? Whatever my opinion is, how would a liberal argue with me? They can't argue that point. What's the point of argument in there? No, Eric and Gary, you're wrong. I should be able to sit in my basement. I should be able to not work, and you are obligated to take care of me. Otherwise, you are a mean, radical, right-wing nut job.
And what did they use, by the way, as part of their what they thought was justification? Pursuit of happiness. Yeah, that's not what that means.
Declaration of Independence, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness on my dime.
Well, this was about the same time that they were comparing Barack Obama to JFK, and JFK was saying, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And Obama was saying the exact opposite. You need to expect things from your country.
Yeah.
He was actually out there promoting that, and the Democrats, the rest of the party, was right on board saying you shouldn't have to work. You should quit.
What did Obama call that? He called it some other form of rights.
Negative liberties.
Negative liberties, yes.
Yeah.
It's like, shut up.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll just basically phrase it differently.
The one thing is that, now that you can sit and look back at Obama, he was really an intellectual lightweight. Yeah. We always called him a cocktail socialist.
Right.
That he'd just sit there and go, okay, what can I throw out there? But
he called the Constitution a charter of negative liberties. And U.S. News and World Report wrote this. What was the date on this? Oh, my gosh, November 3rd of 2008. Wow. Obama's poor understanding of the Constitution. Wow, they were nice back then, weren't they?
Do you know who wrote it?
Who was the author on this? It was an op-ed, actually. Was it Heather Higgins?
Oh, okay. I just wondered if it was like John Fund or something.
Yeah, no.
From way back then.
Yeah. And, it's that's putting it mildly. Poor understanding of the Constitution. Actually, many of us believe the idea was to, again, undermine the Constitution. And in order to undermine the Constitution, you've got to go through it time and time again. Now, he had a poor understanding of a number of things, and he was clueless. He was an intellectual lightweight because he really thought that, and they're still trying, that he and his party could go in and completely undermine the Constitution and that no one would really notice or care.
And, he was sort of right on that one.
Well, there were some, yeah. But
not 100% right.
Thinking they would get away with it and ride the wave of euphoria that carried him into office and carried on for a long time. Keep in mind, I think it was Letterman who said it. None of the late-night comedians it was about a year or so, would not make jokes about Barack Obama. Well, there's just nothing funny about him. Yeah, there is.
He's a serious intellectual. He's a very smart guy who's trying to straighten out the country, and so there's nothing. Yeah. There's really nothing to mock or make fun of him of because he's a serious person who's going to say blah 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 blah. Shut up.
I remember the first comedian, I forget who it was, that did an impression of Barack Obama, and you could almost hear the audience gasp. How dare you? It's, this is where they were, but they really thought they were going to get away with that. They thought, well, everything's in their favor. For the longest time, they thought they had won forever. They thought they had won the White House and American politics forever. Then when social media came to prominence, about that same time in the years following that, but certainly during his presidency, it was the rise of social media, and they thought they had won that too. But turns out they had only won that because, they were setting up FBI offices at Twitter.
Right, Twitter, not
Twitter
X.
at the time, yeah.
Right, thank you.
And, and getting Zuckerberg on the phone. Because that's how if you control the language, you control everything. You control the language. You control how people speak. If you make it so that people will gasp when a comedian does an impression of a president, then you're starting to control things in a great way. They thought they had full control forever. 2 words: Donald Trump.
Remember, it had to be in the summer of 2016. I forgot who said it on the left. Mm-hmm. Remember, the narrative coming from the Democrats were just the way the population is going, and because of Trump's radicalism, a Republican may never win the White House again.
Right? Yep. They really thought that.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. 6 Secret Service agents are suspended for the conduct during the Trump assassination attempt. Wow, that's a year. It took for that. Look, we said there were major security failings. Yeah. Not a lot of details on it, but we'll give you what we have right now coming up on that one. A whole bunch more. You saw the teachers union now moving to cut ties with the Anti-Defamation League because they want to be promoting defamation.
We're not going to have this anti-defamation stuff. No. We want full-on defamation.
We'll get to that and more.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America. We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Hi. Hello. All right, so I was just reading this here from Chris Saliza. Gosh, they make it just so easy.
Yeah,
if you are surprised that the Bondi-led Department of Justice is investigating Brennan, this is the former CIA director, for allegations of lying to Congress, and Comey for the FBI's investigation into Russia meddling into the 2016 election, which they did. Yeah, you haven't been paying attention. This is why I believe Trump wanted to be president again, or at least a very big reason he wanted to be president again, so he could correct the errors in terms of personnel from his first term at Department of Justice and use the department to reward his friends and vanquish his enemies, or at least make things very uncomfortable for them, which is exactly what he's doing to Brennan and Comey. And my guess is they are just the leading edge of a broader targeting of political enemies to come. Remember, Trump will be president for the next 43 months. Well, it's really interesting when he said, if you're surprised that they're investigating Brennan for allegations of lying to Congress and Comey for the FBI's investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 election, which they did, he's claiming that they did lie. And then he sits there and says, well, he just wants to go after his political enemies. As we all know, that entire thing, everything that happened, and it's never been fully investigated, was, as we all know, Hillary Clinton and the DNC, number one, getting caught with the campaign finance violation by giving their money to a law firm that then gave it to another firm who gave it to Christopher Steele. Money went to Iggy Danchenko, a Russian national, to create a fake dossier. In essence, a report that was completely false, all made up things against Trump in order to, number one, hopefully make it so he would lose the election to Hillary Clinton, and then number two, when that didn't work, destroy his presidency with completely false allegations. It took years to get to the truth on it. A secret FISA warrant was issued based on the false information.
Yep.
And Brennan, when he testified, said the dossier had nothing to do with it when we know it did. And they're looking into it and saying, wait a minute, you guys lied, and you lied under oath. And so Saliza is saying, is he still with the Washington Post? I don't know what he does.
I don't think so.
It's. Is that why they're dying in the darkness or whatever it is? But when he says that, he says investigating Brennan for allegations of lying to Congress and Comey for the FBI's investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 election, which they did. Oh, he's saying Russia meddled in the 2016 election. Okay, I had it wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, when I look at where he has the punctuation, he's saying it's not the point. This is so weak. It's so incredibly weak. Hillary Clinton framed Donald Trump for something he did not do.
Yes.
And the DNC and Hillary Clinton campaign funds went to do this, and they lied about what the funding was for. And remember, the FEC fined them for it.
Right.
And the entire thing was done to create official lies about Trump in order to get a FISA warrant, in order to continue with the narrative that Trump colluded with the Russians to hack the 2016 election.
This was her and the DNC's October surprise, although it didn't land at BuzzFeed until October 30th. But it started long before that. The entire plot started long before that. And this was going to be their big days before the election surprise.
I'm amazed how little people respond to Chris Cillizza for, as well known as he is. Mm-hmm. But here's some of the responses to what he wrote. Great news. Comey and Brennan knew what they did. Doubt they will ever see prison time. Unfortunately, the next response. You think the investigation and wiretapping was lawful? This one I can't read. It uses the F word in there. Corruption beyond words. Let me just see here. Let me see. Maybe they shouldn't have lied to Congress. Awesome payback. And so you look at it, and the interesting thing is Cillizza, I guarantee if you put him under cross-examination, he can't defend anything that he said, or he'd look like a fool, because he's saying that Trump is going to go after his political enemies. What did Brennan and Comey do?
Right.
Trump is saying we're going to do a legal investigation. Mm-hmm. Comey and Brennan, the head of the FBI and the head of the CIA, knew that Hillary Clinton, remember, they knew this in July of 2016, knew that Hillary Clinton was going to try to frame Trump. Mm-hmm. They knew it. Mm-hmm. That isn't an allegation. That's fact. The paperwork exists. We know it. They weren't doing it through the legal system. Trump is saying, what you guys did, you went after me. And the Department of Justice saying, you went after me. We're going to see if there's laws broken here. And so to sit there and say Trump's just going to go after his political enemies, what the hell do you think Brennan and Comey were doing?
Right.
And they were doing it illegally.
Right. Well, one of them was ahead of the covert organization in America.
Yeah. And when I say illegally, it's because, as we know, there was a civil violation for the money that they spent, saying that they spent it, it was for this purpose, yet it was for the purpose of creating a fake dossier in order to set up Trump. But they got a FISA warrant, which they did illegally. There was an FBI agent who, on purpose, remember, he was found to, was it fraud or perjury, whatever he was convicted, whatever.
Yeah, I don't think it was perjury. I think it was.
Would have been fraud?
Yeah, I think it was fraud.
Fraud because of what he said about Carter,
in his report.
Carter Page.
Right.
The whole thing was to set up Trump to make it seem like you and I remember. We've got long memories. We don't live in the bubble of today. We remember it was out there constantly. Trump is a traitor to the country. Trump, with Russia, all false, all completely false, all done by Hillary Clinton, Comey, Brennan. They were all involved in it. Obama, Biden. We know the meeting in January of 2017.
It was Kevin Kleinsmith, the FBI lawyer,
yes.
And he was convicted of making a false statement.
Yep. So we know it. So Saliz is saying, "Oh, Trump's going after his political enemies." No, they may be his political enemies, but he's going after them. The Department of Justice is going after them. So the public, and I believe it's the absolute right thing to do, you look at what happened there, one of the biggest political presidential scandals of all time.
Yeah.
When you look at it.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. And
when you see how she tried to set him up with false allegations, and not just false allegations, but legitimizing the false allegations by creating a fake dossier.
Right. I mean,
to the point
at every turn they had to lie about it.
Yeah.
At every turn they had to lie about it. I mean, it started as a massive lie and set of lies, and look how many people it took to keep those lies going, including Kevin Kleinsmith. In that email, making a false statement, that email being used to justify the FISA warrant on Carter Page. And basically, Kevin Kleinsmith got a slap on the wrist. And those at the top of the two most important agencies that made this happen, the CIA and the FBI at the time, were Brennan and Comey.
The newly released CIA review challenges their sworn denials to Congress that the Steele dossier, a discredited set of allegations about Trump funded by the Hillary Clinton campaign, were used as the basis for the years-long Russiagate probe that hurt President Trump's first term. The 8-page review conducted by career CIA analyst found that the dossier did, in fact, worm its way into the text of the highly classified report known as the Intelligence Community Assessment to buttress the thinly sourced yet inflammatory allegation that Putin and the Russian government aspired to help President Trump elect Trump's election chances. Ultimately, agency heads decided to include a 2-page summary of the dossier as an annex to the ICA with a disclaimer that the material was not used to reach the analytic conclusions. The CIA review said on page 5. However, by placing a reference to the annex material in the main body of the ICA as the force supporting bullet for the judgment that Putin aspired to help Trump win, the ICA implicitly elevated the dossier's unsubstantiated claims to the status of credible supporting evidence, compromising the analytical integrity of the judgment. And we have the emails, too, as we talked about yesterday, about the two members of the CIA that said, absolutely not. This is BS. Mm-hmm. You're going to destroy the credibility of everything by putting that dossier in there.
Right.
But they knew they needed that. Otherwise, it wasn't going to go anywhere.
Right.
Because there was no other evidence. Former CIA Director John Brennan, for one, insisted in his sworn testimony in May of 2017 before Congress that the Steele dossier was not in any way used as a basis for the so-called ICA completed in late December of 2016. Later, during a May 2023 House Judiciary Committee interview, Brennan claimed the CIA was very much opposed to having any reference or inclusion of the Steele dossier in the intelligence community assessment. Likewise, then National Intelligence Director James Clapper said in an official January 2017 statement, "We did not rely upon the dossier in any way for our conclusions." Several months later, he assured Congress the dossier was not a formal part of the intelligence community assessment, and it was.
Well, it was a critical part because the first attempt at a FISA warrant was turned down from the FISA courts, the FISA warrant on Carter Page. What changed the second attempt was the inclusion of the dossier. The dossier was the only change in that application.
In an ex-post last week, Deputy CIA Director Michael Ellis said the newly declassified CIA emails show how Brennan personally intervened to assert the Steele dossier's lies into the intelligence analysis over the objections of his top Russian analyst at Langley. They said it failed any tradecraft credibility in it whatsoever. Right. And that's it. And that's it. It's that email that exists, and the two top Russian analysts at the CIA saying, don't put it in there. This is going to destroy your credibility. And Brennan insisted. And that's where the lie is.
Exactly.
What they're saying. That's the lie.
And by the way, that had happened a number of times. I don't know exactly how many times, but going back to Bruce Orr, who at the time was one of the top agents at the FBI, and his wife, Nellie Orr, worked for Fusion GPS. And Bruce Orr had basically told his supervisors there at the FBI, we're not sure we can trust this dossier thing. We don't know that it's solid. And yet they carried it and they went on with it. Remember the meeting at the White House?
Yeah.
The meeting at the White House
in January, right?
In January of 2017.
Yeah.
They knew.
Yep. They knew.
They knew, decided to go for it anyway.
So Saliza can only make his point by omitting the fact, because he's trying to make Trump's going after his political enemies. They're doing it through the legal process.
Right.
That didn't happen with Brennan and Comey going after Trump.
And who else did they target?
Or Hillary.
Right.
Or Hillary.
And who else might they have targeted? Are those agencies, what else were they involved in under the direction of Brennan and Comey? We asked that question once the special prosecutor was assigned, Mueller. We thought, okay, let's go back a few years and see if this was an actual practice with these individuals involved on other campaigns, against other campaigns. If they'll go after Donald Trump in this way, then there's the average person has no chance in hell.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Just because idling is common doesn't make it smart. Idling a diesel uses about a gallon of fuel per hour, which can cost you about $180 per week at $4.50 per gallon if your truck idles 8 hours a day. Idling easily can cost you a few thousand more in fuel alone per year, not including the added engine maintenance expense that results from excessive idling. Harder on your truck's engine than highway driving. In addition to operating costs, many governments impose no idling laws and regulations with fines as high as $25,000. Instead, there are many alternatives. An extra blanket for cold temperatures, window screens for when the weather is warm, bunk heaters, and various auxiliary power unit options abound in this day and age too, many powered just by batteries. Otherwise, diesel and gas gensets burn far less fuel than your truck's engine. Research options to find your fit. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So I have no problem. When you look, what happened in 2016 can never happen again. What happened in 2024, because we'll get to the Biden doctor yesterday taking the fifth when asked if he lied. I guess he took the fifth 14 times in 20 minutes is what I read. Mm-hmm. To go after and find out the truth as to, this gets all back to the auto pen, where he gave him a clean bill of health. Everything is fine. And that was 3 weeks after the special counsel said, Biden, break the law? We believe he did, but we can't put him on trial. He doesn't have the cognitive abilities. Basically saying we can't go after somebody who the jury would view as not mentally competent to stand trial.
Right.
And 3 weeks later, it was like, no, he's wonderful. He's fine. Well, you're trying to get to the truth of that. You're talking about the two biggest political scandals, presidential political scandals of all time.
Yep.
We'll get to that second one next.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thank you so much for being here this morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose.
And thank you.
Yep. So really, when you look at it, the two things that we're talking about, the whole Russia collusion thing, and because they both, over the last couple of days, have become big news. You had Biden's doctor, Dr. O'Connor, pulled before James Comer and the House Oversight Committee yesterday to answer questions because 3 weeks, as we mentioned, after you had the special counsel say, nope, sorry, you wouldn't have a jury convict Biden on any charges because they would say he's basically an old man who isn't mentally capable of standing trial at that point. And then 3 weeks later, Dr. O'Connor came out and said, no, he's fine. He's fine. The entire report said that, let me get it here, as requested by the patient, the following is a summary of the current health status of the president. The president feels well, and this year's physical identified no new concerns. He continues to be fit for duty and fully executes all of his responsibilities without any exemptions or accommodations. As in previous years, I have conducted a comprehensive review of President Biden's medical history and performed a detailed physical examination. I was basically asked yesterday, did you lie about that? Was that a lie?
Right.
And he took the fifth. Now, I did see where you have, and as we all know, that also one of the biggest presidential political scandals in American history.
Well, the fact that they pulled it off tells you how big the machine really is. Even to the extent that after the failed attempt at debating Donald Trump by Joe Biden and he was kicked to the curb for Kamala, he was still president.
Yep.
For several more months, he was still the guy. That's mind-boggling in how enormous this entire thing was. And, you know, the story that came out that it came down to a handful of key people. Well, of course it did. You got to keep the secret. Nobody wants to go down with that ship because they knew that once Biden was out of office, he's of no political use to them. Biden didn't care about his own legacy. They certainly didn't care about his legacy. But they had to cover for themselves, and they had to get the things done that they wanted done. And of course, you're going to get the doctor up there, and there's going to be, plead the fifth, plead the fifth, plead the fifth.
Here is Representative Andy Biggs yesterday talking about this.
Here we're talking about testifying before Congress under oath, and you're taking the Fifth Amendment, which means that you think that you might get referred to someplace for potential additional investigation and prosecution. So if that's the way if that's the route you're going to go, then I think Congress is going to have to probably say, guess what? We think that there's some fire where that smoke is, and maybe we should just grant him immunity, a limited immunity, and that would obviate his Fifth Amendment right, and thus we could find out what really happened. Because that's the goal here is to find out what really happened, who hid what, and what these people knew, when they knew it, and how they covered it up. But it's obvious now that what he did was participating in the cover-up.
What I found interesting is the doctor did not use, when he said the Fifth Amendment, he did not use, the first thing out of his mouth was not, I'm going to claim the Fifth, so I don't incriminate myself.
Right.
First thing he said was doctor-patient confidentiality. Mm-hmm. Here it is, okay?
All right.
Dr. O'Connor, before we begin, I would like to go over the ground rules for this deposition. The committee will conduct today's deposition in accordance with the House of Representatives regulations for the use of deposition authority, which were furnished to your counsel. This regulation is incorporated into the rules of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform at Rule 15, which was also furnished to your counsel. The questioning will proceed in rounds. The majority will ask questions for an hour, and then the minority will have an opportunity to ask questions for an hour if they choose. There will be one staff counsel per side asking the questions during each round. To the extent members have questions for the witness, they will be propounded during their side's respective rounds. Do you understand?
On the advice of counsel, I must respectfully decline to answer based on the physician-patient privilege and reliance on my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. I am not a lawyer, and I must follow my lawyer's advice in this matter.
So there you go. The first thing he used. I'm going to claim the Fifth because the Fifth doesn't apply to doctor-patient confidentiality.
Right.
Now, and the other thing is, though, here's the difference. Number one, we all know the scandal. Any judge that looks at this, if this gets up to federal court, because if they give him immunity from prosecution, the next thing he's going to say is patient-doctor confidentiality, and he hopes to just keep this thing going until the Trump administration is out of office.
Right.
But the fact is, I can see this going to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court saying, sorry, when your doctor comes out and publicly puts out a statement, because the President of the United States, of course, is not a normal patient. Congress, if they just wish to, for example, look at my last doctor appointment and bring my doctor before them just because, well, they can't do that.
Right.
That they can't do. There has to be a reason. What's the reason? The reason is the completely, totally accepted viewpoint of everybody on both sides that Joe Biden did not have the cognitive ability to run the country, and the belief on both sides, people are saying this, on both sides, that he did not have the cognitive ability and someone else was making the decision. I can see the Supreme Court coming out. I may not be using the proper legalese for this, but I can see the Supreme Court coming out and saying, number one, you lost that doctor-patient confidentiality privilege when you put out a statement to the American public telling the American public his condition. At that point, you lose that privilege when you do it. And secondly, this goes to the heart of the matter that even if you did have the privilege, knowing what happened in this scandal is more important than the patient doctor confidentiality narrative that you are promoting. But I think that's moot even because he lost it by, number one, this is the President of the United States, but as soon as you say, here is my analysis of the president, you lose that at that point.
Right. Well, and again, it gets back to the commander-in-chief, who has a great deal of authority and responsibilities And it is imperative that the people know the truth about if indeed there's no one, again, as you point out, on both sides, no one's denying it anymore.
Right.
About his cognitive issues. That in that case, that requires others to assume those duties, and it's not legal. They did that on their own without authority.
Right. But I think the major legal point, and I'm trying in my own mind to say, okay, is there an argument to my point? I haven't come up with one yet as I play devil's advocate, would be simply you waive that right when you gave the American public your opinion on his health. When you said, here's my report, you lost that patient doctor confidentiality. It was gone at that point, and every judge, if this got to the Supreme Court, every judge knows, I mean, except Jackson, every judge knows that he was forced out. Everyone knows he was forced out. Democrats admit he was forced out. Why? He did not have the cognitive ability to be president of the United States.
Right. Special Prosecutor Herr. Remember that whole thing.
Well, that's why 3 weeks later is when he came out with this. Mm-hmm. But that led, that led, you can connect the dots all the way across the board to say
directly.
No.
Yeah.
The public interest, since you already waived that right of patient doctor confidentiality by coming out and publicly giving a statement and a report about the condition of the president. And now we know that's really up to dispute because his own Democratic Party forced him out. And as we know, Herr in his analysis said they couldn't charge him. You have enough to say you can't use patient doctor confidentiality. You just can't use it.
Right.
I don't see the weakness of my argument.
No,
I'm trying to see. I'm trying to play devil's advocate with myself here, and I can't.
Once you issue that initial report, you've waived that confidentiality at that point.
Yeah, if my and remember, let's say I wasn't well, I don't think it matters if you're a public figure or not. If because I do this job and I wanted somebody said Gary isn't capable of doing it because of whatever reason, and I bring my doctor out and my doctor makes a public statement, at that point I give up my patient-doctor confidentiality argument. And also, here's the thing. The doctor could only come out and promote it if Biden told him, yes, I want you to release the report. If Biden came out and said, I don't want you to release the report wouldn't have been out.
Yeah.
So add that to it, that the White House had to approve. Or is he going to try to make the point?
That he did it without Biden's knowledge?
No. That he did. Well, yes, but he did it without Biden's knowledge
because Biden wasn't aware.
Because Biden wasn't aware, and the official the official approval to do it came from the auto pen.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't see.
No, that actually would be a good question. Where did you get the authority to issue the report?
Yeah.
Who gave you that authority? Because it would have to come from the patient. Did it indeed come from the patient?
And so he can claim the fifth from self-incrimination.
Right.
And they can give him immunity from prosecution.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point, he has to answer or he's in contempt of Congress.
Right.
And they can jail him for that.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Bannon knows that.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not in forever, but you could be in for months upon months upon months for not asking it. But what you're also doing is you're setting up the political argument that they hid it.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's ultimately what you're trying to get at here.
Right. But I just don't think the patient doctor confidentiality argument's going to hold up.
No, I don't. I don't know.
Yeah,
if the GOP pursues
because if I did it for whatever reason, I said I want my doctor to go out and tell you that physically I'm okay. Well, at that point, I have given up my patient-doctor confidentiality.
Yeah,
right. Now, I can come out, as I've done, and said, I had my doctor appointment yesterday. I'm healthy. That's me saying it.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, I still have it from that patient-doctor confidentiality from my doctor giving a report. Right. But if I say my doctor can do it, I don't see how you don't give it up. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Well, the show continues even during the break because I had asked the question about doctor-patient confidentiality, and you brought up during the break about HIPAA laws and things like that. And Biden's doctor had said that when he released the records at the request by the patient, and you were making the case, well, you can rescind that permission for the doctor to do that.
In the HIPAA agreement.
In the right, exactly. You can rescind that if you wish to do that, but if you ask the question, if you don't ask the question about the medical analysis and you ask the question as they did in the oversight committee, which is, did you lie?
Right.
You're not asking.
It's about the doctor's behavior, not about the condition of the patient.
Exactly.
It's not a direct question about the actual condition of the patient.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. You know, I was thinking as we talk about Biden's doctor and the fact that he took the fifth yesterday, and if Republicans are talking about, well, give him immunity from prosecution, then he has to talk. But he also stated that, doctor-patient confidentiality. And a point I was just thinking, because you and I just going over this, off the top of our heads, analyzing it, and just looking at any of the legal or court implications here. And we were saying, that the doctor, when he gave the report, Biden's doctor said at the request of the patient. And it's like, well, yeah, you can rescind that, patient-doctor confidentiality. You can rescind that if you want and say, well, yeah, I told you about this, but I'm not going to tell you anymore.
Well,
but
the fact there is a caveat, by the way, that I was doing some more research in the top of the hour. And there is a bit of a caveat in your HIPAA agreement that if you've already given that entity that authority, essentially to share it, to use that information, share it, whatever it might be, then there may be an exception in terms of rescinding it. If they've already used that authority and sharing it in a way that you previously approved, in this case, to the public, not just sending it somewhere or sending a report somewhere. You're talking about the entire public, that which it was expected it would be widely reported. That's the entire idea of sharing that particular information for that particular patient.
And that is my point, not coming from how you looked at it legally, but I was wondering, because I didn't read the same thing that you had. I was just thinking about it while I was having my Atkins strawberry shake during the break.
I was having a ham and cheese.
I'm really going crazy here. I mean, it's just wild. Liquor, no. Atkins strawberry shake, yeah. But that's what I was thinking. Nobody is asking for how the president is now. It's only relating to what you've already approved, what the patient already approved back a year ago.
If there were a new condition that came about, a new diagnosis of a new condition, then at that point the patient could say, I'm rescinding my authority for this entity or all entities or whoever, and I don't want any of this information shared.
Right. And so the question is, they're not asking for new information. They're not, the Republicans aren't saying, we want you because the patient said last year in 2024 that you can release his current condition. All we're asking you is whether you lied about that.
Then that condition. Then
right. We're not asking
nothing now.
We're not asking for how he is now, how he was 2 months ago.
Right.
We're asking when you gave that statement, were you lying?
Because that's the caveat in the HIPAA rule is that, well, if you go back and say, no, I no longer want you, or I don't authorize you as an entity to share that information. Well, it's already happened. It's already been put into action. You already did that. You can rescind from this point on you can rescind that authority and say, and again, it's very different here because of the particular patient involved and the fact that it was public, and the entire idea of releasing that information was to promote it publicly. Keep that in mind.
Right.
It's not
right.
It's not just if anybody asks. It was, we want you to go out and we're going to be publicly stating this, proactively promoting this information.
So you will know that he is capable of serving and capable of running for president and being president for a second term.
It's like the time I went and put a billboard on I-35 because my cholesterol number got below 200. I thought that was worth sharing. I was pretty excited about it. You know, I can't now come back and claim, well, no, I don't want my doctor sharing my cholesterol number from back then. It is a very interesting dynamic, and legally, I don't expect the behavior of the doctor to change here. Pleading the fifth was expected, but really the question to begin with was about the doctor's behavior regarding that, not even necessarily about the information itself that the doctor was sharing. It's whether or not it was accurate information and whether that doctor knew that it was not accurate but shared it to be accurate anyway, which is what we call lying. Something I like to call lying. This new thing. And that's really what you're getting at. Now, pleading the fifth. You know, that's gonna happen all day.
Yeah, the fifth, though, is a separate...
That's a totally separate thing.
It's a totally separate thing than the patient doctor confidentiality argument that they're getting.
But they're I expect the doctor to stand on that and until, I don't know if they are going to offer up immunity or what, what's going to happen down the road here. Because the goal isn't to put the doctor behind bars. The goal isn't to get the doctor. The goal is to find the truth as to what was going on with Joe Biden. And the critical person here is the doctor. Oh, I would say he's one of the critical, pivotal individuals here, along with then First Lady Jill Biden, Jake Sullivan, and individuals who were close to Biden. I mean, Jake Sullivan's already said, "Well, I just kept my head in the game. I was just focusing on the issues that we were dealing with. I didn't know anything about." Yeah, whatever.
Well, I mean, the doctor, if I'm in his position, it's not about the fact that Congress is coming after you to put you in jail,
right?
Because if you lied about that, you can't. Here's the thing: as a doctor, he can't come out and say, "Yes, I lied about it."
Right? Exactly.
His career is done.
Right.
And so if he says that, but just the questioning itself could destroy his reputation as a doctor, because if he says, "No, I didn't lie. I thought that all of his cognitive abilities were absolutely fine and he was 100% and ready to go," he destroys his credibility as a doctor.
Exactly.
There. Either
when
way,
everybody sees it.
Right. Either way he goes, he destroys his credibility as a doctor.
As far as I know, Jake Tapper's not a doctor. Jake Tapper, he literally wrote the book. No, you make the point. You're done either way.
Right. And so the only thing he's trying to do is stretch this thing out and use everything he possibly can, which the first thing would be the fifth, which is, again, self-incrimination, which, again, as a doctor, and we all know, well, no, you have the absolute right to give the fifth because there could be, unlawful prosecutions, there could be rogue prosecutors, as we know.
Sure.
Rogue prosecutors exist. Why?
Sure.
Alvin Bragg.
Yeah.
So you can do that, but it does, and legally you may have totally, solid ground. Medically, you don't.
Right.
Medically,
exactly.
it's a reputation.
Yeah.
I keep thinking of, I think it was Seinfeld who said, "Oh, that the doctor was graduated tops in his class. He's the best. He's the best."
Yeah.
And Seinfeld said, "Somebody's got to be the worst in the graduating class for the doctor."
No, it's true.
Nobody promotes that one, do they?
You know what they call it? Someone who graduated medical school with a B minus? Doctor.
And I'm worried as a patient because I want an A+ doctor.
Right.
I don't want a B- doctor because the difference between the knowledge of B- and A+ may determine my lifespan.
I trust my doctor a lot, and we actually talked about, where he went to medical school and everything else, and when he graduated, I think next time I go back and see him here in a few weeks, I think I'm going to ask to see his grades. Hey, listen, no offense, but I know you've been doing this for over 30 years now, but
I don't care about the license on the wall.
Yeah.
I want your report card.
Yeah, exactly.
Could you please start from first grade?
Right, exactly. I would like to see everything. When they say it stays on your record for life, yeah, when you're a doctor, it should.
And so but that's the challenge that he has.
Yeah.
But I don't think, number one, they can give him immunity from prosecution if he tries to use a doctor-patient confidentiality. Mm-hmm. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because once he gets immunity from prosecution and he can't do it, and then he says, no, doctor-patient confidentiality, I think most people know you can blow that argument out of the water. As we did, we were trying to find the weak spots to our argument, but the point is, the patient said, I can release this information, and they're not asking for new information. They're not breaking HIPAA. We want to know what's going on now with him. They're simply asking him, did you lie?
Right. Yeah.
And they may ask further questions on it, but the big question is, did you lie? Well, if he's under oath and says no,
yeah,
and they get another witness that say no, we all knew it wasn't,
right,
then they can get him. So, and if he says, yes, I lied, his career is destroyed.
Yeah. Right.
His reputation is destroyed at that point as a doctor.
Right.
He's between a rock and a hard place here.
I think if you just honestly, put it on your resume that you were the doctor for Joe Biden.
It's already
over there.
It's already
over
destroyed.
at that point.
All right, we don't have to go any
Good night.
further.
Drive safely.
3 weeks afterwards, when he came out and said, the patient said I can release it, he is just as aware. This guy is just, he's doing I don't think the doctor said this,
right.
But it was everybody else. Remember that?
Right.
He's doing backflips and cartwheels. The only problem that Donald Trump, the only problem that Biden has is the young people just can't keep up with him. He's so energetic.
Right.
He goes all week long. A weekend. Well, okay, we can't say weekends are all week long. And he did call a lid at 9 a.m.
Right. Yeah. And it's honestly, that right there on your resume is going to hurt. Because I can hear the argument, well, somebody had to be the caretaker. Somebody had to be an honest caretaker. Honesty is required.
Yeah.
To truly take care of the patient. And if you don't want to be a part of that publicly, then you should leave the job.
Well, with for example, with my dad, when all this started and the family said, no, we're, my brother and sister are the full-time caretaker, they wanted to know information.
Oh, yeah. You have
they wanted to,
yeah.
And it's like, you can say what you want about HIPAA laws or whatever, but they wanted to make sure. And, they came in to, make sure, and they were fine with it. Everything was, they're wonderful. Everybody's wonderful now, but they wanted to know. Once you said, no, we're going to take this into our own hands because we don't believe the hospital will give them as good a care as we will.
Right.
Which, by the way, from my observation is absolutely true with my brother and sister that are just, I was watching my sister last week when I was there and I'm like, my God, you could do this for a living.
Right. Yeah.
And one of the physician assistants was in there and they went, yeah, you could.
Yeah. No,
she's that good.
I have I would say that about my sister and also my sister-in-law.
Yeah.
And they just because they live close to my parents in the case of my sister and my mother-in-law in the case of my sister-in-law and watching them and also talking to them on a regular basis. But when you become that caretaker, it's critical that you are honest about the situation. And if you're the doctor, you're the professional caretaker, then it is most critical because everyone in that line, you understand how many people are actual caretakers. You have your primary caretakers, and then you have, like for me, I have a special needs daughter who's an adult. She keeps reminding me she's going to be 29 coming up here in a couple of months. And I'm her caretaker during the day. And she's an angel. She's great, but there's this great deal of responsibility that, these things have to be done and have to be managed in things that she cannot manage herself and will never be able to. And millions of us are in this role, whether it's aging parents, or whatever it might be. It is a critical, you have to know, the doctor has to share critical, important information for each of those caretakers that is involved in the daily lives of these individuals, whether they're in a home, whether they're in a care facility full-time, or whatever it is. If you don't want to be honest about this as a doctor and don't want to be public about it, then you are not doing your job. You're not a true caretaker.
If it's proven he lied, he could be sanctioned by a medical association, could he not?
I think so.
Yeah.
I would have to look into that, but I would think that would apply. Yeah.
866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Biden's doctor. It really will. To see where this goes. I do believe the next thing, I would be very surprised because I don't believe it's the doctor they're targeting.
No.
They're targeting whoever was on the auto pen is what they're looking for.
Right.
They're looking for the people that were close to him. Then again, though, because the doctor is the one, they could be targeting him because the doctor is the one that set it all in motion to continue if you had a conspiracy / culture where it's okay for the president not to approve things, that he was kept in office longer where this was allowed to happen based on the doctor's analysis.
The doctor would be the authority here, in that regard in terms of anything that was wrong with the president at the time. And so that authority is the key to everything else that's put into motion, whether it's the behavior of those closest to the president, including Jill Biden. We had to bring Hunter back into it. Remember, there was a time when Hunter's own mess was heating up, and he was basically hiding out at the White House. I mean, he wasn't hiding. He was just in his dad's shadow the whole time. Was there something else going on? And then we bring up Jake Sullivan. And Jill Biden, Jake Sullivan, Hunter Biden, and the doctor. There's your team of four, very core four individuals that would be responsible in this case.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks for being here. One of the things that I just find fascinating is every time Democrats jump on board something, we've got something here. They get bit in the butt again. Mm-hmm. And the latest one is the push by Democrats to attempt to introduce legislation that ICE officers shouldn't be wearing masks.
Yeah, right.
And it became a big deal right at the time where you had the Alvardo, Texas attempted mass murder of ICE agents. And I'm thinking to myself, my God, they do everything at the wrong time. But we do have a couple of updates here. A blue alert has been issued. By the way, a blue alert in Texas is about the fact that there's an alert for somebody who's willing to kill law enforcement.
Right, yeah.
So a blue alert has been issued, and the FBI is offering a $25,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of a man considered the last suspect on the run following an attack on law enforcement outside of North Texas ICE Detention Center. FBI, Dallas, and the Johnson County Sheriff's Office said it happened on July 4th around 10:56 p.m. when officers with the Alvarado Police Department were dispatched to the Prairieland Detention Center, a United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement detention facility. When officers arrived, they found a suspicious person who appeared to be carrying a gun. As the first officer attempted to talk to the person, multiple suspects opened fire on the officer. According to the Johnson County Sheriff's Office, the officer was struck in the neck by at least one bullet. He was flown to a Fort Worth hospital where he was treated and then released, which is good because we had wondered what happened to that officer, and he was released.
Yeah.
Because we kept seeing the officer was expected to survive, and we're like, well, what condition is he in? It's good to see that he was released.
Yeah.
The sheriff's office said all suspects attempted to flee the scene, but Alvarado police and Johnson County deputies were able to take several armed suspects into custody. ICE says 10 suspects were arrested, are all facing local charges of terrorism aggravated assault on a public servant and a deadly weapon, or aggravated assault with a deadly weapon against a peace officer. On Wednesday, a blue alert was issued for the final remaining suspects. So they're saying that terrorism is one of the charges.
Yeah, it would make sense.
Yeah. And well, you'd ask that question. The FBI says Benjamin Song is wanted for attempted murder of a federal officer and discharging a firearm during, in relation to, and in furtherance in a crime of violence.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm still looking. That's getting close to conspiracy, is it not? A federal arrest warrant has been issued for Song, and he's considered armed and dangerous. Looking at, let me just get it here, some other stories out there, more details from Fox News released yesterday. Some of the suspects charged with attempted murder of 2 ICE agents and a police officer in Alvarado, Texas on the 4th of July met in an online chat group on Signal. And court records show the incident could have been worse. A July 7th criminal complaint filed by the U.S. District Court, Northern District of Texas, alleges that the assailants shot 20 to 30 rounds from an AR-15 style rifle before it jammed, causing it to malfunction. Investigators continued this week to look into how the suspects were linked, including through the possible Signal group chat. 10 individuals are facing federal charges, including 3 counts of attempted murder on federal agents, in addition to 3 counts of discharging a firearm in relation to a crime of violence. In addition, the U.S. Attorney's Office charged an 11th suspect, Daniel Sanchez Estrada, with concealing evidence. On Friday night, the heavily armed group lured 2 unarmed ICE agents into a parking lot by firing a barrage of fireworks at their door and spray painting graffiti on their personal cars with the words "traitor" and "ICE pig," which agents could see from the cameras inside. At around the same time, a police officer responded to their 911 call for 2 men firing rounds from a nearby tree line, and an officer was hit in the neck, which forced the agents to take cover. The officer, as we know, was treated and released, according to DHS. Suspect Bradford Morse was arrested while trying to flee the scene in a red Hyundai van. While in custody, he told an FBI agent he had been part of a Signal group chat for a while and that he had been invited to the group chat years ago after attending a protest. And I know Eric just looked at me because
years ago, huh?
Because we look at that and go, oh my gosh, so that you have major premeditation.
Oh, yeah,
that is suspected at that point.
And again, who else is in the group?
Yep. He drove to the incident with another suspect and 2 people he only knew by their nicknames, Champagne and Rowan. Inside Morris's van, police found a revolver, 2 AR-15 rifles, 2 Kevlar vests, a ballistic helmet, and a loaded magazine. According to the criminal complaint, Morris claimed that he met some people online and transported some of them down from Dallas to the center in order to make some noise. Police also found 7 suspects in black military fatigues wandering in a field 300 yards away, some of whom were covered in mud from trying to escape on foot. They also had weapons, vests, and radios. One possibility is that they are related, and this is a national concerted effort to go after first responders, said criminologist Alex Del Carmen to Fox News in Dallas. A second possibility is the fact that this may not be related at all, and these are simply copycats. People are getting inspired to do this kind of harm to first responders because they're reading what's happening in other states. Well, that's where you get to the culture, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's permissible because the culture says.
Right, exactly.
And that's where you get to the combination, as we've said, conspiracy, culture, whatever. And it says court records revealed extensive planning as well as anti-government literature obtained in an apartment tied to the suspect including literature entitled Organizing for Attacked Insurrectionary Anarchy. The term insurrectionary anarchy is explained as a subset of anarchy that stands out for its commitment to violence and revolutionary insurrection, according to a Perspectives on Terrorism journalism article, which is part of the International Center for Counterterrorism from March of 2024. The Combating Terrorism Center at West Point also had a journal article in May of 2023 that explained that insurrectionary anarchism is regarded as the most serious form of domestic non-jihadi terrorist threat, which is why you probably saw in the one article we read that there are terrorism charges in there.
Yeah, right.
Another suspect allegedly had flyers in his backpack with Fight ICE Terror with Class War and Free All Political Prisoners. ICE is actively working with the FBI and the Texas Rangers regarding the incident, said the DHS. Threats and acts of violence towards law enforcement officers will not be tolerated. Secretary Noem has made it clear, if you threaten or attempt to harm a law enforcement officer, we will find you, prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law, the statement continued. Wow.
Yeah. You and I had wondered when we were going over the story and the arrest story came out. The shooting itself happened in Alvarado on Independence Day. The story came out over the weekend of the arrests, and you and I were basically going through it and wondering how large might this be? How many more people might be involved? And so far, there's only the one blue alert looking for one individual. But my question would be, where does the investigation go from here? If we're talking about a chat group that's been around for years, then I'd like to know the nature of that chat group. I mean, how long was the planning stage? How long, who all was involved? Who else made this happen that wasn't on site there outside the ICE detention facility in Alvarado? These are all questions that I have to wonder if the investigation is going down that road. Certainly it is. You have to know what other threats there might be. In fact, on Monday, there was so these arrests came down on Monday, and then you saw also the shooting, and this was a lone actor. The shooter was neutralized, was killed by officials there in Mission, Texas. And the question is, are these two related? We don't have any information right now that says they are. But to what extent are people being organized online to commit these kind of violent acts? The attempted assassination of law enforcement and ICE agents.
Of unarmed law enforcement agents, by the way, the ICE agents. And we'll play it coming up here, probably following the top of the hour. But I'm actually happy that Chris Cuomo, who is a Democrat leftist, as we all know, came out absolutely outraged by this. And making the same points, because you don't. And I think it needs to be emphasized again. We did it the other day. It needs to be emphasized again and again and again. You don't see things like this in the United States.
Right.
You do not see. It's very rare to get people who live in the United States to conspire together to get more than one or two people or three people without somebody not blowing you in. To get, and you asked a question the other day, if you've got 12 people here that were on that Signal chat group, how many people actually knew it was going to happen?
Right.
How many people were just those 12? And, how did they all get together? I mean,
how did they get the equipment? How did they get the vests? How did they get the gear and the guns and who brought that together?
Who paid for it? Did they all pitch in together? What was the conspiracy, involved in this? Mm-hmm. And the one thing is, and when I read the thing, I mean, I saw your eyes just look at me when it was like, the one guy had been on the Signal chat group for years, apparently with some of these same people.
Right.
And we're like, and what else were they talking about that nobody ever, that nobody ever brought out or told authorities? This is such a rarity to get 12 people. I don't know any of their nationalities yet. I saw one had a green card. All right. I don't know the rest of the nationalities of the people involved in it. But even if, do you remember remember the terrorist attack? Remember it was in the Yemeni committee in Lackawanna after 9/11.
Yeah.
And they blew in, it was a community that blew in the people that were the radicals that wanted to be involved in a terrorist attack. Mm-hmm. And they said we had no problem blowing in these people because we came to America to get away from this.
Well, you look at Brandon Darby, Breitbart, Texas. Look at his history and how he came to be somebody who was at first an activist on the left, and then when he found out that these activists that he had met wanted to commit acts of violence. This goes back to the Republican National Committee or convention rather in 2008. Well, he couldn't keep his mouth shut and didn't want to, and he became an informant for the FBI. And that begs the question: are there people here that knew that didn't say a thing about this?
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. We'll have more audio on the attack of the ICE Center in Alvarado, Texas on July 4th, and updates and just some audio out there, which is really interesting, including the president being asked about the legislation Democrats are putting forth where ICE agents have to wear masks. He's just like, wow.
Yeah.
What the hell is going on here?
Yeah, they must reveal themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and when you see what's going on and just how rare it is, which I said the other day, I said, this worries me. And I'm sure it worries law enforcement too, because you don't see this in the United States. You don't see 12 people who conspire together, who premeditate the murder of unarmed anyone, law enforcement, whatever.
Yeah.
This is so incredibly rare, and it means, is it conspiracy? Is it culture? Is it a combination of both? Whatever it is, it's a problem.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Yeah, the attack that you saw on ICE agents and law enforcement in Alvarado, Texas, just unprecedented when you talk about the fact that there were 12 people that were involved in this, and it's going to be really interesting to see, what evidence the FBI eventually, gathers on all of this, because it's just, as I said the other day, this is something to worry about because it's such a rare thing where you can get that number of people. And as the one suspect apparently told law enforcement, they've been on a Signal chat group. He's been on it for years talking radical ideas. Clearly what you see here is premeditation. Mm-hmm. This was organized in a significant way, which shows a conspiracy, which shows also a culture where this is permitted. I want to play this here. This is Chris Cuomo talking about it. Remember, Democrat liberal Chris Cuomo here from his show the other day.
Listen, I got to tell you, if you want to have the fight, I'll have the fight, okay? If you want to try to tell me that you believe that you somehow represent something more pure when, if you're on the left, you just had 10 young people try to kill ICE officers because their policies suck, because the way they're doing it is wrong, and this is something you want to get behind? And say, yeah, well, but? What but? What are you, nuts? If you want to have a fight, I'm here for it. Okay? Because these fringe people on either side, you want somebody to take you on, I'm here for it. Because you're killing us with your crazy. What happened with these kids, these young people, I'm old, everybody's young to me. This was planned, it was organized, they baited, they picked the date, they were heavily harmed. I'm telling you, this could just have easily been an ISIS operation.
Wow. From Cuomo, that's amazing. Now let's play. This is CNN. I can't believe I went to the same high school as he did.
You did. You walked in his shoes. You filled his shoes when he left the halls of, what high school was it?
Kenmore West.
Kenmore West.
Senior high school.
You stepped up.
Kenmore West Senior High School, Kenmore, New York.
That's when you stepped up.
But he's got on Representative Jeffries. Listen, this could be, and talking about the attack in Alvarado, and in general, also bringing up the Axios to back it up, doing the same thing we did on CNN. Wolf Blitzer's doing it, by the way. It's Wolf Blitzer we're talking about. And he first brought up, it's not part of this audio cut, but he first brought up the attack in Alvarado, and then went right to the Axios column about, blood that you've got, as we have said, you've got Democrat members of Congress that are requesting anonymity to tell you that their constituents want blood.
Yeah.
And here's Will Blitzer talking to Jeffries about it. Listen to Jeffries' response.
According to Axios, some are even being told they need to be more willing to go out there and get shot when fighting. That was a direct quote, get shot when fighting back against some of Trump's policies. One House Democrat saying, quote, and I'll read it to you, our own base is telling us that what we're doing is not good enough. There needs to be blood to grab the attention of the press and the public. How do you respond to that, Leader Jeffries? Are Democrats not meeting the moment, not doing enough to fight these developments?
Well, we are in a more is more environment in terms of the unprecedented assault on the American way of life and our country that has been launched by Donald Trump.
Do we have to go any further?
Nope.
The leader of the Democrats in the House, in essence, is justifying violence against Republicans. Not even Republicans. Violence, because I can guarantee that not all ICE agents are Republicans.
Right.
And he's like, well, we are considering what Trump is doing.
Right. And he calls it an assault, by the way.
Yeah. Yep. So, what those Congress people are saying even about their constituents is exactly what the leader believes, too. The leader of the Democrats in the House.
Right.
It's unbelievable how, because you think about it, we've gone from just November of 2024 when the Democrats lost, which, and you've got a ton of Democrats out there, saying, well, look, we've got to be able to, we have to move towards the middle. We have to do this, blah, blah, blah. We have to, wait a minute, that was 2016 when they said, we have to go to flyover country. We have to find out how these people think. And they just blew that out the window, and it was like, okay, we have to moderate in some way. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? No sense of moderation at all. No, now we're getting to the point where you've got Democrat Congress people telling a liberal publication we're scared to death of our own constituents.
Yeah.
The people that vote for us want blood. They're not electing us to do legislation. They want us to be attacking law enforcement.
Yeah.
And getting arrested for attacking law enforcement. They want blood, as Wolf Blitzer just pointed out. And so now you've got to the point where the Democrats, and this really all started in L.A. a couple of weeks ago, that the attack on law enforcement is justified because these agents are following the law that came from Congress, that are the elected representatives of the people, and violence is justified. Murder is not, attempted murder is not criticized. It's okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how much further you can go. I said back in 2018, they've got to change. I never thought it would get to this point. I never thought it would get to this point where it's like, okay, we feel comfortable not denouncing attempted murder of law enforcement officers or the justification, because the justification is Trump is actually enforcing. Think about this. The executive branch is enforcing the laws of the elected representatives of the people of the United States, which is Congress.
We wondered how far they were willing to go. We asked this question, especially more often, we asked this question in 2024, leading up to the election, because you would hear from local officials and representatives from certain districts in certain states, and they would be talking as if, okay, they're going to block ICE from doing their job, right? Because we know exactly what the sanctuary policy is. We know where that is. And when they started talking like they were basically going to stand in front of ICE agents, we said, well, wait, do they literally mean this? Well, we know now at their rank and file wants even more. It's not good enough just to say something or even be on site and protest. They're talking about committing acts of violence. These constituents want blood.
Yep.
There's no way to perceive that as something else other than extreme violence, which we have witnessed in recent days.
Let me say it again and add one more to it. What the Democrats are saying. Democrats, number one, they're scared to death of their own voters. Their voters want blood. Their voters want them, the members of Congress, not to legislate, but to assault law enforcement and get arrested.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they want.
Mm-hmm.
Hakeem Jeffries does not denounce those that want violence or those that wish to kill ICE agents. He wouldn't do it. And why? What is Trump doing that's so incredibly radical? Trump, as head of the executive branch and the Department of Justice and ICE and the Border Patrol, is saying enforce the law that Congress, and we have to explain Congress a little bit further, because apparently there are a ton of Democrats that don't understand the role. Well, number one, they probably don't even understand the three branches of government,
yeah.
And they don't understand the role of Congress, the elected representatives of the people who pass these laws. And by the way, the majority of these laws, the vast majority of these immigration laws that are on the books were bipartisan. And just a couple of years ago, the entire Democratic Party was totally on board, as they have been for the last 40 years, on record of enforcing and deporting illegal immigrants until just a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm. You know, when we were asking that question over and over again, how far are they willing to go? Well, now we have evidence this week that their base, their constituents, want them to go further than they're going, the lawmakers to go further than they're going. And we know where some of the constituents are going.
And you can't look at this because, as we said with the Axios article the other day, which CNN brought up, I don't know if MSNBC touched that, but you and I first said, how did that story get written to begin with from Axios? Why did they do it? Who initiated it? Did the members of Congress that are scared to death of their own constituents that they won't even go on the record with their names? They need to do it anonymously because they're so scared to death of the Democratic voters that they've met who show up at their town hall meeting and who they talk to one-on-one. By the way, all this information is not coming from me. It's coming from Axios, the liberal publication, talking to liberal Democrat Congress people. Republicans aren't involved in this at all. It's the Democrat media reporting what the Democrat Congress people are telling them of how they're scared to death of their own voters who want blood, want violence, and believe that the job of the member of Congress is to attack law enforcement and get arrested. Absolutely, absolutely insane. And then at the same time, you had two of the Democrat senators, Cory Booker and Alex Padilla, have a new bill out that want to require ICE and Border Patrol to have IDs, and they don't want them wearing masks, and they're wearing the masks because we know they're being targeted, and they were just targeted.
Right.
Over and over again, they've been targeted.
Yep.
And you're just like, are they nuts to promote this? Here's the question being asked to Trump by Pete Ducey the other day. Here we go.
Two Democratic senators now, Cory Booker and Alex Padilla, have a new bill out. They want to require CBP and ICE officers to have legible IDs, and they don't want CBP or ICE officers covering their faces. Would you ever sign that?
Well, they wouldn't be saying that if they didn't hate our country, and they obviously do. I'm surprised that they would do it. Knowing a little bit about them, I don't know them well, but these officers are doing a tremendous job. They're great patriots. If you expose them because of statements like have been made by Democrats and others on the left, usually, mostly, I think probably exclusively, you put them in great danger, tremendous danger. And it's sort of funny when people picket in front of Columbia, in front of Harvard, and they have masks on, more than masks. I mean, you can't see anything. Nobody complains about that. But when a patriot who works for ICE or Border Patrol puts a mask on so that they won't recognize him and his family, so they can lead a little bit of a normal life after having worked so hard and so dangerously, there's a problem with that. So they have this is the problem with the Democrats. They have a lot of bad things going on in their heads. They've really become they've lost their confidence, number one, and they've become somewhat deranged. I want to do whatever's necessary to protect our great law enforcement people, and they.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's just this week has just been, it's absolutely insane. And like I said, they keep cutting their own political throats. It's just like they are deranged. I'll be more blunt than the president.
The rails.
Not partly or sorta. They're deranged.
Remember when we used to talk about scorched earth?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That seems tame compared to where we are right now.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at JJ Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. Drivers must always be prepared for a roadside inspection. This means drivers should always have their personal, vehicle, and company credentials organized and ready, and having any shipment paperwork such as bills of lading or hazardous materials shipment emergency response information organized and ready for the inspection official. Just an FYI, the top 2 violations written against drivers every year, as well as during Operation Road Check, are log general form and manner and log not current. Both are completely avoidable if the driver keeps the log accurate, compliant, and current at all times. Having the vehicle ready for inspection involves the driver conducting daily inspections and making sure any problems that are discovered are immediately corrected. Vehicle readiness also requires the company to make sure that the vehicle is current on all scheduled maintenance and that the maintenance schedule is adequate. This will make sure the driver is being given a sound vehicle to start with. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller & Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. So after we just played all those audio cuts and talked about how the Democratic voter, according to Democrat congresspeople and Axios, the liberal outlet, want blood, after we talk about what happened in Alvarado, after we talk about the Democrats wanting to be able to identify docs and docs ICE agents here, I'm just going through social media. This from John Cooper, formerly Long Island campaign chair for Barack Obama, majority leader of the Suffolk County Legislature. All right? You ready for this one?
All right.
Here we go. Nobody forces anyone to be an ICE agent. These thugs have all willingly chosen to do that job. They could quit anytime they want. Remember that.
Remember that. Why?
Number one, calling them thugs.
Yeah.
They're employees of the federal government.
Yeah.
Again, they are enforcing the law of the elected representatives of the people of the United States in bipartisan legislation that was passed years ago that the Democratic Party agreed was completely and totally mainstream.
Yeah.
Things have, we've focused on this a lot today and the other night, but it's important because things now have changed and they're being blunt about it. Democrats want law enforcement attacked. Democrats want blood. How do we know? That's what Democratic congresspeople are telling the liberal media. That's what their voters want.
Yep.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, we got to play this. I played a Trump audio cut just a couple of minutes ago. Got to play this one, though. Just, not off the topic of the Democrats now promoting violence. This is Trump being asked by Pete Ducey about the threat from Iran that he can't safely sunbathe anymore at Mar-a-Lago. All right.
Okay.
Here we go.
There is an Iranian official who says you, President Trump, have done something that he can no longer sunbathe in Mar-a-Lago. As you lie there with your stomach to the sun, a small drone might hit you in the navel. It's very simple. Do you think that's a real threat? And when is the last time you went sunbathing anyway?
It's been a long time. It's been a long time. I don't know. Maybe I was around 7 or so.
I expect to hear, in my 20s, like 7. You know why? Because he started his first business when he was 8. He was already wearing a suit and tie in third grade. Oh, my gosh.
That lemonade stand, from what I know, was quite successful.
Yeah. Yeah. They call it Minute Maid these days. Very large company. It's, of all the things thrown at him, 2 attempted assassinations, which basically was the basis of this question, if you think about it. We already know that Iran had a plot to kill Donald Trump, and we now, you look at everything that has been thrown at him, and the left's reaction. The constituents, because it all goes together. The constituents on the left are literally asking for blood. This is according to, don't believe Eric and Gary, these conservative right-wingers. Listen to the reporting at Axios. And then Gary's old school pal, Wolf Blitzer, reported on it while he's talking to House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries on CNN. No one is coming out saying this didn't happen. No one's coming out saying, oh, that's, and my question would be, because out of those 9, only one was willing to give his name, and it was a representative out of, where was it? Illinois?
Illinois, yeah.
And the other 8 said, no, I want to remain anonymous. I'm not going to talk about that, because clearly they live in fear of their own supporters. I say constituents, that's not fair. Anybody in their district would be a constituent. Their own supporters, the people that get up there and want them, again, to do something more and talk about the most insane level of behavior, this kind of violent action, which gets me back to the question I started with this morning when we came on the air. What does the 26 season look like when it comes to the midterms? What do you promote? We know what they're doing. They're trying to get it to the point where it's unlawful for ICE agents to wear a mask. That's what they would want if they could do that. What's next? We should put their addresses.
Well,
we should list where their kids go to school.
Well, we've seen it even from Jeffries. We saw it in Los Angeles. Justification for attacking it because when you say things like who said yesterday they're kidnapping them. Oh, was that on The View?
Kidnapping them off the street.
They're kidnapping them off the street, and Democrats have said that. They're kidnapping. The federal government's kidnapping. I don't know how many times I have to say it because maybe I should stop saying it because you can't fix stupid. The ICE agents are doing what?
Their job.
They're enforcing the law from the elected representatives, which is Congress, the elected representatives of the United States. They are the elected representatives of the people of the United States. There's a ton of laws I don't like. I think I'm going to go after an IRS agent because you and I continue to get screwed by tax policy in the United States. By the way, just so I'm kidding, everybody knows my sarcasm.
Right.
As if, I'm using that as an example. Would anybody they're taking my property.
Right.
They're taking my property. That justifies me committing acts of violence.
Stupid Republicans.
Would anybody buy that argument from me?
Well, no.
Of course they wouldn't.
No, it's insanity to the end, but it's also in in saying that they're kidnapping people off the street,
which they're not,
that this is an assault. What are you doing? What's your goal? Your goal is to drive the fear in individuals.
Your goal is the same thing.
Is it any shock that their supporters show up to meetings in their home districts and tell them they want violence?
Right. You know, and that's the fascinating thing about this week is that Axios report. Like I said, CNN brought it up. Well, Blitzer brought it up.
Mm-hmm.
Brought up the Axios, brought up the attack on ICE agents to the Democrat leader, as we played that audio cut just less than a half an hour ago, who just blew it off and went, wow, because of the assault of Donald Trump.
Right.
I think our response is proper based on the assault of Donald Trump. What assault?
Yeah.
Is it, am I wrong in any part of my statement where I say ICE agents are enforcing the law, which is the executive branch of the United States job, and the law comes from where? The law comes from the elected representatives of the people in Congress, and the vast majority of those laws that they are enforcing are bipartisan laws where Democrats voted for them because almost all Democrats less than 10 years ago were for deporting illegal immigrants and illegal immigrant criminals.
Right.
Am I wrong in anything that I've said? I don't believe so. I'd like to know, as we used to say a lot when we first started working together, tell us where we're wrong. And so, well, we don't like the law. We don't want to deport illegal immigrant criminals. We want to protect. Think about this. Sanctuary city laws. And now with Holman saying, nope, we're going to focus on the sanctuary cities because that's where the criminals are.
Yeah.
That's where the criminal illegal immigrants are. And they're going bonkers because they don't give a damn. We remember how they, poo-pooed. Oh, it's only a couple of apartment complexes.
Right.
It's not like every
just
apartment.
A handful of violent individuals.
Right. They've only taken over a couple of apartment complexes.
Right.
Not every one. But that's the excuse. The excuse is, and we saw it with Los Angeles. Well, every part of Los Angeles isn't in an uprising.
Right.
Only where ICE is operating.
Right.
And you make it seem like no, we're not making it seem like that. We're focusing on what's going on. Yeah, but you're not focusing on the fact that the violence isn't going on in other places.
Well, these individuals are not completely violent. They sleep for several hours a day. They're no danger to anyone while they're sleeping.
And they weren't violent for the entire 8 hours they were there. They were only violent for 45 minutes. The other 7 hours and 15 minutes, they weren't violent.
They haven't committed an act of violence in almost 24 hours. That means they're mostly peaceful.
Right. And if they only committed violence for 45 minutes of the 8 hours that they were there, that's
mostly peaceful.
Exactly. We can justify what we're saying here. It's mostly peaceful.
These are mostly peaceful individuals.
This is the kind of logic that we're dealing with.
And Trump is the fascist.
Don't arrest that person for murder. I know he shot that other person, but his day was mostly peaceful except for that half a second when he pulled the trigger on that gun.
Right.
What about the rest of the day? Why are you forgetting about the rest of the day when he was mostly peaceful?
The sheriff, yeah, but not the deputy. Oh, sorry, that's a song. Never mind.
I mean, this is actually what we're dealing with.
No, that's who they are.
We're not being the Babylon Bee. But the Babylon Bee can't be the Babylon Bee anymore. They can't even parody anymore because parody has become reality for the delusional Democrats.
That's it. That's absolutely it. The piece they wrote on James Gunn, again, you could have seen that at National Review. It doesn't relate to this very topic, but that's what the Babylon Bee's been pointing out the truth since the beginning.
We've been getting on the Babylon Bee's case
with
recently,
few exceptions,
saying, look, you guys said you were going to be parody, and you're not parody. You're actually saying what happened.
You're making real points. You're more accurate than any so-called journalist
and I'm
in the liberal activist media.
I'm sure the response would be, yeah, but guys, understand. The left has become a parody of themselves.
Oh, my gosh.
So, yeah, the truth has become the parody.
Yeah. Wow. I really want to see what the party is going to do for 26. I don't see this thing with ICE going away. And I really hope and pray that those that are investigating the shooting at Alvarado, the shooting in Mission, and the online activity of individuals that are a part of these kind of things, I really hope and pray that they can root out everyone that is a part of it. Because if they've broken the law, they should be brought to justice. Full stop.
Understand.
We cannot live in a society, an unlawful society. Think about this, how bad this is. They are proactively going out to take out individuals who are keeping us a lawful society, whose job it is to enforce the actual law. That's the basis and the core of any lawful society. The Democrats have proven once again they want no part of a lawful society.
Oh, look, that's why I said the other day I want terrorism charges here, and I did read in one article, the Fox 4 from Dallas, there are some terrorism charges in there because the whole goal is to intimidate and frighten and make it so the loss is there for the agents, where then it's like, look, we can't have agents being killed like this.
Right.
You know, we need to just mellow this out. We need to do some type of, as you saw this week, we need to do some type of amnesty. And then the president goes, no, there's not going to be amnesty. That was flying all over the place. Get things so heated where people get scared, and therefore you will say,
That's
okay,
their goal.
Let us enable the criminal.
Yeah, that's their goal.
866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Why? Because our show ends in an hour, and when it ends, our show becomes a podcast. We record the entire 5-hour show, and it becomes our podcast. And then you can listen if you don't catch part of the show, or we reference a part of the show and say this happened in hour 2. You might want to go back to our podcast. That's what you do, and you can hear it and everything else. We know that people go to sleep with us, and we know people wake up with us.
Yeah. And thank you for listening. We greatly appreciate it.
And we know people go to sleep with us, even though they're interested, they find our voices very soothing. And we have got criticized at times when we start out the show in these voices and then end up in these voices, and we wake them up at 2 in.
Yeah, that's actually happened. That's the downside of wearing headphones at night.
Yes.
You know, when you're listening to the show. We're not going to apologize, though.
No.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.